I was 28, sitting in my car after another soul-crushing day at work, when I stumbled upon a question that shattered everything I thought I knew about life. It wasn't from a self-help guru or a motivational speaker. It came from a Roman emperor who died 1,800 years ago. That single question led me to discover 11 more that completely rewired my brain and transformed how I handle every challenge, relationship, and decision in my life. What I'm about to share with you isn't just philosophy. It's a mental operating system that the most powerful people in history used to build. Unshakable minds. These aren't your typical positive thinking questions or mindfulness exercises. These are the actual daily inquiries that Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, asked himself every single day while ruling an empire, fighting wars, and dealing with betrayal, plague, and personal tragedy. He developed a system of self-questioning that kept him mentally strong and morally centered. The Stoics called this practice prosouche, which means continuous attention to the present moment through rigorous self-examination. But here's what shocked me. When I started asking myself these same questions, my anxiety disappeared, my relationships improved, and I found a sense of purpose I never knew existed. The first question hit me like a punch to the gut. What is within my control and what is not? Sounds simple, right? But when I really started examining my daily stress, I realized I was wasting 90% of my mental energy on things completely outside my control. Other people's opinions, traffic jams, my boss's mood, the weather, even global politics. I was living in a constant state of frustration because I was trying to control the uncontrollable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what does this actually mean in practice? How do you separate what you can control from what you can't when everything feels overwhelming? The second question made my stomach drop. If I died today, would I be satisfied with how I lived? This isn't about morbid thinking, it's about radical clarity. The Stoics practiced something called negative visualization or premeditatio malorum, imagining loss to appreciate what you have. When Marcus Aurelius asked himself this question, he wasn't being pessimistic. He was cutting through all the noise and distractions to focus on what truly mattered. But here's what terrified me. When I honestly answered this question, I realized I was sleepwalking through my own life, postponing everything important for someday. How many of us are doing the same thing right now? The third question exposed a lie I'd been telling myself for years. Am I living according to my values or according to others' expectations? This question reveals the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. Epictetus, who went from slave to one of history's greatest philosophers, taught that true freedom comes from living authentically, not from external circumstances. He said, "No one can harm you without your permission." But I was giving everyone permission, my parents, society, social media, my peers, to define what success and happiness should look like for me. The question that kept me awake at night was, whose life am I actually living? The fourth question shattered my victim mentality. What can this obstacle teach me? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This concept, known as the obstacle is the way, suggests that every problem contains the seeds of its own solution. But when I first encountered this idea, I was furious. How could losing my job, my failed relationships, and my financial struggles be opportunities? Yet, as I started reframing my setbacks as training exercises rather than punishments, something incredible happened. I began to see patterns and lessons I'd completely missed. But here's where everything I thought I knew about Stoicism was wrong. I used to think it meant being emotionless, suppressing feelings, and accepting mediocrity. The truth: Stoicism is about emotional intelligence and taking massive action based on wisdom rather than impulse. The remaining 8 questions aren't about becoming cold or detached, they're about becoming so clear on what matters that you can act with courage and compassion, even in chaos. Question 5 changed how I handle conflict. How can I respond to this person with understanding rather than reaction? The Stoics believed that anger is temporary madness. It clouds judgment and destroys relationships. When someone cuts you off in traffic or sends a harsh email, your first instinct is to react emotionally. But Marcus Aurelius asked himself how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. This doesn't mean being passive. It means responding from strength rather than weakness. Question 6 revolutionized my relationship with failure. What would I attempt if I knew I could not fail? But here's the Stoic twist. They believed that failure is impossible when you focus on effort rather than outcome. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." The question isn't whether you'll face setbacks. It's whether you'll learn from them and keep moving forward. Questions 7 and 8 address the deepest source of human suffering: comparison and envy. How does comparing myself to others serve me? And what am I grateful for right now? The Stoics understood that happiness isn't about having more than others. It's about appreciating what you already have while working toward meaningful goals. Questions 9 and 10 tackle purpose and legacy. How will I be remembered? And what impact am I having on others? Marcus Aurelius knew that true immortality comes through the positive influence you have on others, not through monuments or achievements. The final 2 questions bring everything together. What is the most important thing I can do today? And how can I serve something greater than myself? These aren't just productivity hacks. They're about aligning your daily actions with your deepest values. 6 months after I started asking myself these questions daily, my life looked completely different. Not because my external circumstances had dramatically changed, but because my internal world had been revolutionized. I stopped wasting energy on things I couldn't control and started focusing intensely on things I could. I began making decisions based on my values rather than other people's expectations. Most importantly, I found a sense of peace and purpose that no external achievement had ever given me. The ancient Stoics weren't just philosophers sitting in ivory towers. They were emperors, slaves, and everything in between who developed these practices while facing real-world challenges that would crush most people today. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while dealing with war, plague, and personal tragedy. Epictetus overcame slavery to become one of history's greatest teachers. Seneca navigated the treacherous politics of imperial Rome. If you're ready to stop being a victim of your circumstances and start building the mental strength that leaders have used for over 2,000 years, start with just one question tomorrow morning. Pick the one that made you most uncomfortable when you heard it. That's probably the one you need most. Write it down, ask it honestly, and see what happens when you start living like the philosopher warriors who came before us. The question that started this journey for me wasn't just about control, it was about taking responsibility for the one life I've been given. What will your first question be?